Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul? And welcome, Anne Marie. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing well. Welcome, Anne Marie. Pleasure
Thank
to have you
you.
here.
Love being here. Love spending time with traders. It's a lot of fun.
I agree. So, how was your trading day, everyone?
Mute. Anne Marie, thank you as always for joining us. Coach Paul, thank you as always for joining us as well. And to everyone in the chat, thank you for being here. Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. Actually, nope, that's not how the intro goes. All over the place, just like the markets today. My brain is in a range right now. If this is your first time here, the goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our job as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay, been a Topstep performance coach since June of 2023, been trading for the past 12 years and in the futures markets for the past 5. And that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we will introduce our guest.
I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep as a performance coach for a year and a half. I've been involved in the futures trading industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share some of my experiences, maybe perhaps some wisdom, and help you on your path to becoming a successful trader.
Awesome. And Anne Marie, for those in the chat that don't know you, I think most of them do. They were excited when we told them you were coming on. But go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Band. I've been trading for about 2.5 decades, not quite as long as Coach Paul, but it's been a tremendously fun ride. I'm at the point in my career where it matters more to me to reach out and be active talking to other traders. And so I am super delighted when I get to be on a show like this with Jay and Paul.
Thank you for being
Well,
here.
we're excited to have you.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Go ahead and hit that like button because, like we said, we're going to bring on guests. You don't have to hear just me and Paul speak. We're getting a little bit of an echo from Anne Marie, so I will try to figure that out. But before we get into that, let's look at the news that we had out for the day. It is Thursday. Actually, no, today's not Thursday. Today's Wednesday, but tomorrow the markets are off. So you see what happens when they throw these random days off in the middle of the week. Screws everything up. But we did have the jobless claims number come out today. Actual was 201,000. Forecast was 215,000. We had an ADP unemployment change number as well. Came in a little bit lower than expected, 122K when the forecast was 140. Of course, we got our crude oil inventories that we get on Wednesday. We got the nat gas number as well, which normally comes out on Thursday, but holiday tomorrow. And then, of course, the FOMC minutes. So there was a lot on the calendar today. It didn't look like there was a ton on the calendar today. At least it didn't affect the markets the way we normally see. But big news of the week, of course, non-farm payrolls on Friday. And tomorrow is a holiday. So that might be why we've seen some of the consolidation out there. But Anne Marie, Coach Paul, anything on the news front that you've seen today that I might have missed?
Nothing here except I believe we're just waiting for the big NFP. Nothing else big came out that I saw. Anne Marie, how about you?
Well, unfortunately, my audio didn't allow me to hear anything that either of you said. but
No.
but so maybe the last question again would be great.
Anything you saw on the news? Anything you saw on the news front today?
No, but I did see some unusual movement in the dollar, and I didn't know what that was about. My goal, when I look at the markets, I've adapted the space where anywhere that I plan to execute, I need to have those numbers identified pre-market. And so if I go in and stare down my charts and I go, all right, here are the levels that I'm looking at. I'm only going to trade if it comes into those zones in the active market, and I'm not going to take any other trades if they don't comply with what I expect those zones to be seeing. And so that really is it. Now, Friday, we've got the employment numbers. That's going to be huge, I think, and certainly what the traders are looking at. But there's a lot of currency stuff going on. There's a lot of bond stuff going on. And I think that's really one of the reasons we saw the slosh today, besides the fact that we had such a savage move the day before. We might be in a whiplash mode where we're saying, oh my gosh, what's going on? What's going on now?
What's going on in the bond market, I cannot speak to. I did a little bit of a research on my own, and Coach Paul, I know you talk about it often, but if we cannot find a buyer for U.S. debt, we're in trouble. Is basically my short synopsis. Coach, you're going to speak to it a lot better than I can, but that's kind of what I'm getting from it. Right. Let's.
That's the bottom line.
Yes.
And that's coming up here. If it's how many trillions?
Well, if nobody will buy
Can
it,
you hear me?
we'll buy it back. That's what we've been doing. We buy our own debt. Don't ask me how that one works. But
Yeah, don't you wish you could do that with your trades?
I know.
Just to make them magically disappear. There's no debit here.
Hey,
Oh, I think that's called a Ponzi scheme.
yeah,
But
yeah,
somehow, between that and the change of administration, there is volatility, and it's showing up everywhere. Dollar to the Japanese yen got hit a bit. Rates are still on that steady rise. And what's becoming the biggest number is NFP, as far as I've noticed in the bond market or the treasuries. It really moves it. So I think there's
yeah,
some shifting of positions. Overall, I don't think there's a willingness to put a lot of capital in the equity markets right now, until we see this transition. I think they could go for a couple months here.
yeah,
And that's and in front of this another Friday, Monday, 2 weekends a week. The result was a lot of choppiness.
yeah.
And speaking of the holiday that we have tomorrow, I see some traders asking the question in the chat. So let me just read this from the Topstep email. And if you check your email from Topstep, you should have this as well. But tomorrow, the markets are closing early at 8:30 a.m. Central Time for trading combines, express funded accounts, and for trading combines and express funded accounts, your trades need to be closed before 8:15 a.m. Central Time on 1/9. So that is tomorrow morning before the market opens. You can start trading again at 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, January 9th. For any live funded traders, your trades need to be closed by 8 a.m. Central Time on January 9th. So 8:15 for combines and XFAs and 8 a.m. for live funded accounts. So you can trade tonight. I will be on slow markets with Dakota. Markets are
Nice.
open, but those trades need to be closed by 8:15 and 8 a.m. for those accounts. And again, that should be in your Topstep email. Right. Let's get into the markets. There are 35 different markets that we can trade with Topstep accounts, not just the equities. And the equities being pretty much unchanged today. Let's look at the top percentage movers on the day. To the downside today, we had the British pound down 1.01%, crude oil down 1.23%, and wheat futures, our biggest percentage mover to the downside, at 1.29%. To the upside, we had platinum up 0.82%. Copper up 1.79%, and it did it again. Nat gas, our biggest percentage mover to the upside, 6.45%. 4%. I'm going to stop counting, and I think what I'm going to do is we'll just, whenever it doesn't end up in that top three, then we'll have a celebration or something like that, because it's too consistent now.
Well, it was only up 6%. It's slowing down.
Only, right? Yeah.
Right.
Only
That's a great
small.
place to trade.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. To round out our big four in gold, we had 0.59% to the upside. The S&Ps, sorry, the Nasdaq unchanged, 0%. And the S&Ps up 0.1%. We already talked about crude oil, number two to the downside at 1.23%. I have an equities chart up here. I'm an S&P trader, at least for the month of January, and I'm kind of enjoying it. I might switch over full time. We'll see what happens. But Anne-Marie, Coach Paul, what were you seeing in the equities today? Why do you think we saw the price action that we saw? I know we talked about it a little bit, but any trades for either of you in the equity markets today, and what were you seeing?
I saw a lot of balance, and we got caught in a range. And range traders, they'll be all you
Me.
range traders should be, yeah, you should have raked it in today. But early on at VWAP on the first half an hour settled in the middle of the first half an hour. And that's usually a sign there's no urgency. We've talked about urgency before, and non-committal trade. So I stayed out of trouble, lost a little bit of money. These days used to tear my eyes out, and I'm happy to have just lost one ante. How about you, Anne-Marie?
So I love days like today, and the way that I start the day. Jay, if you wouldn't mind putting us on an hourly chart just for a quick bit.
Yep. Here we go on an hourly.
Yeah. So from that hourly formation, when we come into the day, and my thought is always, okay, what is the big picture? And the big picture, just from what we're seeing, is that from the low in the center of Coach Jay's picture to the other low we saw before the day began, right there, exactly. It said to me, hey, listen, there's going to be some buying pressure underneath. So I'm going to look to the left and find heavy congestion. And so that's what I did. And that's exactly that 5917 number right there, right around there. And so that would be the first thing I do. And then the second thing that I would do is look at the top and say, all right, what's the near-term framework telling me? And it's giving me lower highs in that trend formation from that edge, correct, to, you could take any one of them if you like, but that one's just fine. Exactly. And so when I see a formation like that, my first thought is, okay, this means I likely have got a sideways pressure event until I break up over old support / new resistance. And that number was about 5980, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's what I looked for. Now, what I like to do is I use Mentor Q all the time, and it gives me the gamma lines. And what the gamma lines tell me is where all the option traders have positioned themselves into the trading day. And after my eyeballs have figured out what the chart's doing, I'll go to the gamma lines and put them down. And so the gamma lines today were 5924, 59 50, 5960, and 5975. And so that worked exactly like my brain said, all right, I can see where price is trapped in those areas. And so my thought was, when I normally I trade in the morning in my Topstep counts on YouTube TV as fast markets are going. And so I'll share my trades. People were in the NQ. They were saying, hey, listen, I like the short. And I said, hey, Jake had come in and he had a great setup at that first pass into 320. But I knew I needed, oops, that's in the NQ. But nevertheless, I knew I needed to wait until it hit the floor before I started adding positions. And so what these gamma lines tell me is even if they break, watch them resolve and they'll move in the direction of relative trend, which was a sideways patch today. And so what I looked for was, yeah.
I got a quick question for you while
Sure.
we have for our audience. What does a gamma line represent?
Okay, so the gamma line represents where the option traders are positioned from a selling perspective. Of course, the dealer is also holding the other side of that. But from a selling perspective, where they want the price to either not breach, or if it breaches, they then have to buy the instrument. So if you're short the calls on that 59.50 and it starts moving up over the top of that, in order to balance your portfolio for net zero delta, you're going to have to start buying up the instrument in order to flatten out the difference between what you're losing on the short calls versus what you're making on the long instrument in itself. That sounded really confusing.
Yeah. And no, it's not. I understand. I've spent a lot of time in the options world. For our audience, it's the delta or the change of the delta, how quickly it's changing. When there are mass positions where volume or open interest stays, if it gets above it, the gamma starts picking up its pace, or in other words, they got to buy more and more. They get shorter and shorter as the market gets above that level. So which is interesting is you get this information, and is it from the equity options or the futures options?
No, it's from the futures options. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's from Mentor Q. Those guys they're really good. The question is, how do you use these levels? Right.
Yeah.
And it's always after your eyeballs have said, what do I see the broad market doing? Listen, I see buyers coming up from underneath. I know there's a floor there. I can see heavy congestion to the left. So I'm going to let it come through that heavy congestion. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm putting a limit order at X. What I'm saying is I'm going to put a limit order after I see participation coming into the market at that level, because I know the gamma traders are going to have to say, hey, we either have to defend this zone or we're going to end up amplifying the move to the downside, which is what happened yesterday, right? Yesterday, that sort of motion happened in the early part of the day. And then the reverse, of course, happens on the upside float. But the bottom line is this. The gamma lines say this is where people are going to start making decisions. So if you and I are in a boxing match and I want you to fall into my rope-a-dope, right? I'm just going to make it look it up on the internet, rope-a-dope. So, yeah. So if I want to do that, I'm going to try to.
Coach Jay is a boxer.
I know. I used to love watching it. Now I can't. Now my heart is too soft. As I get old, I'm like, oh, somebody's mother or somebody's wife is just having themselves a heart attack. So anyways, what you want to do is let these guys duke it out and realize that once it holds traction again, everything moves back into flow and it's going to run into the next gamma lines. So let's go to the NQ. And I'm going to show you this exactly the same way it worked out in the NQ. We'll talk about those lines. So we're going to take a look at it. Same sort of thing.
Just real quick, if I can, Emery.
Yeah, sure.
We have some, traders in the chat. Basically, what Anne-Marie is talking about is a lot of what we talk about here from a volume perspective. It's just a different form of volume, right? A lot of times
Yes,
we talk about the options data and how it affects the equity prices. What she's reading is volume, right? And the reason those gamma lines
yes,
become relevant is because of the amount of volume that's traded at those prices. And
exactly.
and
That's a
remember,
lovely way to put it.
everything we trade here, derivatives of something else, right? The futures markets are derivative of something else. I love the fact that you're getting the options data for futures. So what
Yes.
were your gamma lines today in the
Okay,
Nasdaq?
so the gamma lines today were 21,146, 21,200, 21,250, 21,300, 21,350, and 21,450.
Oh, I have a question.
Two,
When you see, are they normally that kind of bunched together?
no,
Okay.
that's a
And they're underneath
fantastic
the market.
question.
Right, that too, coach.
What?
So
Yeah.
two things, right? They're normally not this close together, right? Some of the levels that you just gave me, they're within 50 points of each
50
other.
points,
And then
yes.
what coach was saying was, we traded to these prices today, but if you look at the price action before the market opened, all these gamma lines that you just gave me for the most part are below where the market was trading at the time. So when you see that, right, both of those things, right, you see so much of pretty much a consolidation, right? The options market is telling you that there's going to be a consolidation in this. How do you trade that?
So the last one up at the top was 21,450, and I believe that we'll hit that in the aftermarket. So that when I look at something like that, remember the big picture comes first. I see that there's buying pressure from underneath because I see higher lows. I see there's selling pressure above from the lower highs, so I still have that wedge. So I know there's going to be sideways formations, right? The trend lines that we built in the pre-market. And so for me, I always look to the left. So we've got these gamma lines between 200 and 250, and there's heavy congestion to the left from the hourly perspective where we see the price action where that looks like it's sort of, nope, go backward, right there with the sideways heavy congestion before the bounce up.
The
Yeah,
ones we marked before.
yes, exactly. So my thought is, hey, when it comes in there, get ready to buy because they're going to defend the line and they're going to hold it. Now, here's the thing that worked in my favor today. Because it looks so sideways, I said, you know what? I'm only using micros. And because of that, I was able to manage the drawdown of those wicks that broke my ledge because I said, all right, it's going to break the ledge, but I know there are buyers underneath because the trend has these higher low candles. And I know that my framework should put me in a sideways pattern. So I'm just going to wait it out. And when it gets to holding, I'm going to add to the position and walk up
And
into the different levels.
Anne-Marie, can you define what you said ledge? I think I know, but can we
The
let
ledge is the
our
box.
audience know?
The ledge is the box. Yeah, that's the bottom
Okay.
of that box. And so I'm going to look at it and go, whoa, I don't want it to go down below there. But if it does, I've got some micros, so it's not going to kill me. And that's where I position the trade. Now, I thought during the trading day it would really get up to that 450, but a clear line in the sand started being very important at that 350 level. And every time we rocketed over, sellers came right back in, which tells me there's still a lot of sellers trying to come in off that top edge. So the buyers are really going to have to defend underneath. It's going to be super interesting to see what the new gamma lines are in for tomorrow. So,
so they change day to day?
oh yes, every day they get updated.
And
And the great thing is they get updated based on the day that it just completed. So you have hours and hours to study rotation and see what price action will do. It's not like it shows up at, 9:30 in the morning and you've got to be on the fly.
what expiration do they use for the gamma
It's all
lines?
zero DTEs for the following
Oh,
day.
okay.
Yeah. And we know how much zero DTEs matter these days.
Um, now that says why they're so tight. Because it's
Most
only
of the
one
time,
day.
they're not. Most of the time,
Yeah.
they're not that tight. They're
You know what's
normally
interesting is
between
that
100 and 150 points wide.
the vol is so high right now. The average true range on the daily is I have it at 460. What was just at 320 a week ago or beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So does that usually happen? Does that tighten when we get volatility, or is
No, not really. It really is how the traders are feeling about price. It really is. I think a lot of it is just how the traders are thinking to themselves about, what is it that I can make? Because there's so much money right now. I don't know if you guys heard the last Goldman Sachs call or the last JP Morgan call. They make billions of dollars a quarter selling these zero DTEs. I
yeah,
mean,
of course they're
sick.
fading they're
Fading
fading
retail.
Exactly.
the
So we
gamblers.
just watch the footprints and we go, okay, well, we know it's got to get inside of that number. So let's just watch them climb it up. Yeah, it's fascinating. The key, though, is to not say to yourself, okay, this is the line, I need a limit order. The key is to say, what is the broad market doing? And if you can see what it's doing, then slip into that space where you go, all right, this is in a range. Like today, I said, okay, I got range trading. I have negative pressure from above, positive pressure from underneath. I'm going to get sandwiched in between some levels. Let me go to the gamma lines and see what those levels are. And then I position in those spaces. But here's the beautiful thing. Now that we have these lines set up like this, how about we go to your 3-minute chart, Jay, and then see what actually happens here in terms of getting 3-bar reversals. Now, I know that Dakota uses the 5-minute 5-bar reversal or 3-bar reversal, but that 3-minute at these lines tell you, look at them. Look at how clean they are.
So wait,
Very,
wait for
very
the
clean.
response. Wait for the market to kind of turn around.
Exactly.
And I think I might have missed.
Exactly.
I think I might have missed one up here. I wasn't always the quickest at taking notes in school, so I think I might have missed one of the levels up here that you gave us. But yeah, I mean, we can see the market reaction, and I think like Anne Marie said, and just FYI for the chat, Nick Fortick, who's I think number 6 on the leaderboard right now, uses these same gamma
Yep.
lines in his trading as well.
Yeah. He
You're
uses spot gamma, I think.
okay.
I think that's who he uses. Yeah.
Got you.
But for sure,
The
they're glorious.
it's not a blind buy or sell at either of these levels, but it's a kind of a general zone and almost, they're pretty spot on. How does the
Yeah.
market respond here, right? This what looks like a drastic sell-off. This is actually the sell in the S&Ps that I tried to catch during fast markets. But look at where it stopped, right? And we
Yep.
know these markets are not perfect, so it's not going to stop to a tick, but it's a general zone where the market kind of responded to and bounced off of there. So just kind of adding to the validity of this this volume. And we talk about it all the time, Coach. Price levels are relevant to the volume that trades at that price. Um,
Exactly.
these prices meant something to a bigger market participant than me, and I think our job as retail day traders is to be great followers. But we have to have some type of inclination for what the bigger market participants are doing. And today they wanted to trade between these zones for whatever reason.
Exactly.
So really
One
good
thing
stuff.
I would add is that when you have these zones, as you look at the 3-minute, remember this in your mind. Momentum is more important than the line at the first pass. So if you're looking at a downward motion and you go, oh my gosh, there's a gamma line, I'm buying it. Watch the slope of your candlesticks. If they're going straight down, imagine this. If I tried to run through a spider's web and I'm moving at a clip of, I don't know, 3 miles an hour. Let's say I've got a little jog going. I'm going to go right through that spider web. But if I'm just moving along at a slow rolling pace, I'm going to bounce into that spider web and move off of it before I move through it. And so remember that momentum at the time you reach the level is critically important. You have to look at it and go, okay, is that going straight down? I'm standing off to the side. I'm going to wait until it stops going straight down. And then I'm going to watch to see if it can start moving back up. And what these lines tell you is it's beneficial to the big trader for it to continue to move up because they've sold those and they want them to expire out of the money.
So now today was a balanced day, sharply unchanged. Now let's say that break got below that last gamma line.
Huh?
Does
Oh,
that force the institution?
No, they have deeper lines below that.
Institutions? All right. At what point do they fail that now the gamma explodes or and now these
The more
institutions
lines
have
they
to
break,
start
the
chasing?
faster it goes down. The more lines they break, the faster it goes down. Why? Because let's say Jay has some at some level, I have some at some level, you have some at some level, and they're all different levels. We are all selling if they break those lines to the downside. We all become sellers. So it.
Could you put a VWAP from the opening 3 minutes? I'd be interested to see how far away it gets from the volume when it's at the. Yeah, boy, that adds something to me. I mean, when it got down there, the volume. If volume was on top of that, they'd be trading it down there with volume. With VWAP away in the middle and flat, you've got a pretty good idea it's coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Exactly.
All
And
right.
that's really why you look at the VWAP. It's very critical that you've got your VWAP up there when you're staring things down because the flat VWAP does tell you that price action is in your favor to revert from wherever it is on these edges. That's why today was just an absolutely beautiful range trading event.
Interesting. So I am not the best range trader. I think I'm pretty good at identifying them, but I'm not the best at executing during those ranges. I think something like this, where I could identify where some of these further levels are, could help at least, identify the extremes of the range. For me, once I saw this flat VWAP, I locked myself out. You can see I locked out with a $25 loss on the day because these have always tended to be bigger losing days for me. But having some of this information and kind of general areas, and there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. Yes, you can just look to the left and see it there. But I'm a volume trader, so knowing that volume traded at a specific price is extremely helpful.
Boy, I wonder. Well, I don't want to get. I could go in deep into option talk, and that's not what we're here for.
We could
But
take
I
it
wish
up
I
in
knew what
another
the
space.
straddles were.
Absolutely. You can take it up in another
Yeah, but
space.
yeah. We'll
It's
have you on the.
fascinating
Someone asked about
because
it.
the tail is
We'll do a
definitely
Discord
wagging the
chat
dog.
on this.
The
Discord
tail is
chat? Oh, yeah.
definitely wagging the dog.
Very good stuff
Yeah,
here.
maybe we'll have do a thing on Discord chat on this.
Yep.
Go deeper.
Yeah,
All right.
for sure.
I like that idea. All right. Anything else on the equity markets? I took one trade today actually, no, I took a couple trades. Took a loss. Someone called me out in the chat for not sticking to my guns here, but I do want to explain that trade a little bit. I got short at 59.48 in the S&Ps. right around here, actually, right there. And decided to cut the trade just because, actually, it was a little bit later. I think it was here. Here's where I got short. Decided to cut it. Actually, nope, it was back here. Decided to cut it because of just not really seeing any momentum, any selling coming in. In hindsight, did the trade work out? It did. But coach, we talked a little bit in the green room about this, the opportunity cost. There's been a couple of days recently where I've taken trades that I know are lower probability, and they end up being, if they end up being a loser, and then we eventually get the market that I like to trade, which is a trending market, and we've seen it happen a couple times where the first hour of trade is consolidated, and then we get a trend in that second half of the day. Uh, I'm looking at the opportunity cost of taking the not so high probability trades early. Maybe they end up being winning trades, potentially they end up being losing trades, and now I have a risk budget that I have to apply to the entire day, right? So do I miss out on the eventual trade if we were to get a trend, because I took some of these lower quality trades, and that's the reason I cut this. Now it cost me $200 to do that. I was risking about 500, but I cut that risk in half for the potential for a better trade later in the day. I was able to take some trades to the upside, but again, not favorable price action for me. And I think on a day like this for me, and everyone trades differently. Emery loves range bound trading days. On a day like this for me, if I'm going to trade the S&Ps, my mindset goes to survival. Uh, do not lose your account in a day like today
Exactly.
because a better day is coming. Um, Go ahead, coach.
A great point, Coach. Goes right
Yeah.
into a question from or comment from JT Irby.
Okay.
Coaches, how do you handle the blow up days? I was $170 away from passing 4 combines and blew them up with the moron trade. For those of you, the moron trade is adding to a loser. Moron, moron. We say that in the pit. And this relates to what Coach Jay does. He talked about a risk budget for the day. Well, this is extremely important. If you do not have, they'll allow you, to lose 50% of your account. It's extreme. It's way out of the league. You should, no more than 20. You've heard me preach 12 to 15% of your equity. So you were $170 away. And by the way, this is very common because we want to put on trades just to get over, which might not be part of your plan. But we can never have certainty in any trade. Understand this. The only certainty we have is that we have uncertainty. And if I was young and someone told me that, I probably would have left the business soon. Because you have to understand how to handle that constant uncertainty. And what happens, you are $170 away, and this happens a lot. Like, okay, I get away from my trading plan or what got me that close because I don't want to lose. I don't want to go back and give $500, $300, whatever it is, because I got to get there. And that is like that. It being a human, and this is where we veer. So my suggestion is if you have to, when you're getting there, you have to tighten up your downside. Like you can change it too during the day. I mean, but never let your account. And this is, I've done it, by the way. I'm not preaching. I've done it.
We all have.
We all
Yep.
have.
Absolutely.
That's where you learn your biggest lessons. And like being coaching basketball for many many years, and Coach Jay will do this. There was a saying I learned from an older coach that says we're either winning or we're learning. And for you to learn that this happens. All great traders have gone through this. Understand you have no control when you're going to get over that. But you can't, I know that you can't force it because then you lose control. So that's my suggestion. You tighten it up. It's all right to lose because you cannot control which trade is going to get you over, but you can control your downside. So learn that lesson. Anyone else on that question?
What's Anne Marie? How do you handle blow up days? And in this case, it sounds like pushing for a monetary goal of
So,
passing that combine.
so my thought is this, and what I want to bring it to is, are you looking at trading as a business or a hobby or as a space to find your adrenaline fix? And I say that jokingly, but many of us come into trading for the excitement because it's very exciting to trade. It's a lot of fun. The trading is absolutely fantastic. You can get all your adrenaline hits that you want. But at the end of the day, it's just like Jay was saying, you have to look at it as a business. Now, that business is either going to be a side hustle or it's going to end up turning into your main source of income. But I love baseball. And so I'm going to put it into baseball analogy. If you get to the bigs and you get to the show, you aren't going to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to try this pitch today. I'm putting much thought into it. I'm just going to try this pitch today. Right? That's no. He has studied every guy that's coming to the plate. He's studied where they hit the best. He's studied where they hit the worst. He's looked at his best pitches and he's going to say, you know what? I'm going to make sure that all I do is give him fastballs low and inside because he can't hit those. Now, it doesn't mean that he's always going to throw that low fastball on the inside every time because he's a human. And that's going to be that element of whatever. But you have to have a toolbox where you say, okay, this is my tool to attack this problem. And if you don't keep using the right tools, it's like trying to build a house with a spoon. You're not going to get there. You aren't. And so stop. Listen, I love trading and it's very, very exciting, but it's really only exciting if I'm making money. If I'm losing money, I'm looking for someplace to throw up because I can't stand to lose. But we really have got to say, listen, this is my wheelhouse. This is my edge, and realize that there are so few of us that make it to consistent big money in this league or in any league. Baseball, football, hockey, basketball, you name it. These guys are masters and commanders of their particular skill set. Trading is no different. So when Jay says, hey, listen, this is my risk event, he's managing his day to say, I go from here to here. Sideways, not my game. I don't like playing in that space. So I'm going to trade very minimally and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and trade another day. Most of us are so addicted to hitting buy or sell that
Yep.
we have very low impulse control and we rush on in. And then the whole day we're just running triage because we've lost 2,500 and we're just trying to claw back to break even. And so, really giving you guys a little pitch here, but the new session for the VIP traders, we're going to be working a ton on this particular topic and really learning to hone these skills inside of all of the VIP teams. It's going to be next level fantastic for us to really turn ourselves into performers rather than, being at the back of the herd.
Love to hear that. Great answers. Great answers.
All right.
I am loving this session, by the way. And if you haven't done so already, hit the like button. I just hit it. I told Coach Paul yesterday when we got off the show, we talked about Anne Marie coming on, and I said exactly this. I'm going to just throw you to the questions and be a student today. So thank you both for your answers and great questions as
It's my
always.
pleasure.
Chat.
I've been kind of a screen hog, so my apologies.
No, all good, all good. That as
Oh
intended,
no,
Anne Marie.
you're a guest.
Yep.
That's
As
why you're
intended.
here. Thank you.
So anything else on the equities? The one thing I do want to say, just looking at a higher time frame a little bit, we do have NFP coming out on Friday. We know the markets are closed tomorrow. Just going out to a daily on the S&P chart, 5906, the low of that FOMC candle, and the 200 moving average, which is a lot further down. Two
Oh,
areas
it's
that I'm looking at.
crossing.
Yeah, we're starting to cross on that 20 and that 50 moving average, Coach. I don't know. These markets still look heavy to me.
Yeah,
Of course,
to
anything
me
can
too.
happen, and that NFP number can change everything. But we are about where we closed today, 3% off the all-time high. In the Nasdaq, we were trading around 5% off that all-time high, and yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's where I think we're headed.
Yep.
Wow.
I
I
do.
noticed today's action on near the lows with the gamma is at the bottom of the FOMC decision day, which we've been in that range. We have not left that range. We
Mhm.
wicked it, but very interesting because all that is right at the bottom. So
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah,
this NFP is going to be,
I know it's going to be fireworks, I think.
yeah.
I'll be on fast markets for it, so it should be some good
Woo-hoo.
All
trading.
right.
We'll make up for whatever we tried to do today. I'm happy I didn't lose a whole bunch of money, but let's move on to some of the other markets. Amory, we go through all the markets here. We take a look at crude oil real quick. Um, Crude is picking up in volatility just a little bit, kind of still in this range. We did trade above $75 today and kind of sold off from that point. We did have inventories out earlier today. Uh, but crude is starting to look like a chart, coach, that I am okay trading.
Well,
Uh, Go ahead.
the movements come back in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looking at that chart, though, I think this upward move has lost its steam. For the first time in a week, I think we've settled below the 200 bar moving average on the 30-minute and the 20 minutes following it through. So that we might be back into the soup just when you're ready to get back in there. But we're still above the daily 200. But today's action was reminiscent of where we were before. The rally got sold hard. Let's start from last night.
Last night's open here. Emery, do you trade crude at all?
I do.
Yes. There's last night's open, coach.
Now that 20 bar moving average, when someone was asking that question about how to use it, once again we've been running above it, and look what happened. And was that last night in London setting the tone again.
When the VWAP crossed below it, this was coming into that New York
Early
session. This is
morning.
7
Yeah.
a.m. Central Time. This candle is during London session, and
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
this is that displacement candle. This is the one that changed the market.
We follow London.
Yeah.
We've
Right.
determined that. By the way, Brent crude is, I think, a bigger contract notionally than West Texas on the world stage. If I remember from I
I
used
think
to
so.
trade it years ago. But what happened when we got under the 20 and VWAP went under the 20? Someone was asking this question. That's one of the keys in a short term to look for. That's exhaustion. VWAP didn't, and we had that rally. So going through that, we rallied in front of it. What was that price?
Highs here 75.29. We do have that major $75 level
Boy,
right
it
around there.
seems like that to me seems like someone got stopped out over 75. I feel that pain. but soundly rejected, and we finished near the lows of the day. Not good performance. How about you, Anne Marie? What do you see?
Well, Jay, if you would put it on a daily chart. So my thought was if we go backwards and we get more, yeah. And just if you would draw a trend line down from the top peak, yeah. And yes, right there to connect the three of them. Take a look at that. So for
We've
me,
had that on there before.
We did. I just removed all my
that's
drawings.
that's what I was looking at when I came into the day. And I thought, all right. Now, I believe ever since oil broke above 70 this last time, I felt like the market was changing. And so I expected a big run up. But this trend line told me, hey, listen, if I don't close over that ledge, I am very likely to head back down into heavy congestion. The problem is I ended right at the low of support. And for the last really 4 days, counting today, that's been a buy zone. And so I expect the buyers to try and come in. But if they bounce up and they can't get back above that area, that's going to be a topping formation that I'll be looking at that will bring us back down into that soup that you talked about.
Into the crude oil soup. Really nice range today. It looks like we had a couple of traders that caught this move right off of that trend line. Really is where we saw that rejection and the turn, and a really nice move to the downside. Before inventories, right? By the time we got the inventory number, the move was pretty much over. So
I know it.
really nice move in crude today for anyone that did catch that. Actually, that's not true. We did have another dollar after the inventory print. So pretty good move here. We got a question from Sushim. Do do you all coaches find setups every day, and how do you approach your trading day? I'll answer this one first. Um, is there in the and I scan a bunch of different markets, right? I think I said it on Fast Markets today. If I was trading by myself in the S&Ps today, I would have just looked for another market, right? Scanned somewhere else to look to trade. And we kind of talked about it a little bit late during fast markets today, but crude oil started to move, nat gas started to move. Is there a market that presents an opportunity for me to trade every day? 100%, right? There's usually not a day that I can't find a setup somewhere, but that doesn't mean that I'm always taking the setup, right? We have to be positioned to kind of uh, be able to execute, and sometimes you're a little bit too late to the move. And in that case, I don't. What I try to do is not force anything. On a day like today, you know, I was stuck in the S&Ps. That's where I defaulted to today. If I went somewhere else, could have had a better day, but I didn't. And by the time I did, I would have been forcing a trade. So now I have to just chalk that up as this is a day that I'm not going to make a ton of decisions, and that's okay, right? In my mind, I have two choices there. I either lock out where I'm at for a small loss, or I can try to force something and potentially make some money. But in my experience, in my numbers, those usually end up being losing days. So it's just about, you know, I went and grabbed lunch. I came back, seen if there was an opportunity, didn't see one, and then locked the account for the day, and I was done trading. What about you, Emery? Do you see a setup that you could take every day?
No. And the reason is the following. I have several very sharp tools in my toolkit, but really it's only about 3 of them.
Okay.
And if I don't have something that goes, all right, you can buy there, or all right, you can sell there, that fits in your little plan, then, I break out the knitting needles. I don't really break out the knitting needles, but you can tell. I mean, that's what I'm saying is I'm not going to go,
Darn.
I'm not going to go chasing rainbows simply because the premise is always the same. Stick to the process and the money will follow. What is your process? It's going to be the thing that defines your edge. What defines your edge? That's individual to you. You can look at something and go, I am not so fast on the trigger to move with a 3-minute time frame. I might need a 5-minute time frame or 15-minute time frame or whatever it is. You have to learn to understand your ability to reflexively move. And sometimes a lot of us are major overthinkers. I'm a huge overthinker. I wish I wasn't, but that's why I set things up before the market and I go, all right, this is the premise. Comes down here, you get to take the trade, don't diddle in the middle. You got yourself your target. And if that doesn't hold, good night, Irene, right? I mean, I can sit back and study all kinds of things. If I wanted to go to different markets, I could, but I am kind of that old dog that just likes to sit around in a couple of different things I know really, really well. And if it doesn't come to me, oh well, there's tomorrow.
Great answer. Anne Marie, we have one last question here for you from Nelson, 357. In all of your years of trading, what is the most important lesson you have learned? Really appreciate your analysis. Blessings.
Oh, well,
Oh,
thank you
good
for that.
question. You got the temple rub.
Great question.
You know, I have to tell you, I've learned a lot of very hard lessons. One is I'm not in charge of where price goes. Two is I have to let the market give me what it gives me rather than trying to force the market to give me something. And that's all come through very big, monumentally humongous losses that I sat down and said, listen, I understand that the market is the worst kind of teacher. It gives the test first and it teaches the lessons after. And so the question is, did I learn this lesson so I don't make this mistake again? And if I had to say the one thing I've learned is to learn the lesson. And sometimes that means slow down. If you do 50 trades a day and you don't go back and go, all right, where did I execute here? A lot of times we make trades. We're like, I don't even want to look at the market again. I'll look at it tomorrow. But unless you review, just like the baseball player, listen, every time a batter comes off the field, he's walking straight to the dugout, right in under the tunnel, so he can go review what pitches were thrown to him. We have to learn to look at the things, and sometimes they're flat out ugly. And so the big lesson is learn the lesson. And that takes, digging into those trades and going, is this the ideal spot? Could I have made a better choice based on not the future, but the present that I was looking at, right? We learn to read the present in order to do better on the charts. So yeah, long answer, but I'm not really
Awesome.
good at short answers.
Thank you. Thank you. I suffer from that too.
Yeah. Jay's going to have to bring out a hook.
But
Yeah.
not at
We
all,
need,
not
we
at all.
need like a little.
Honestly, I was thinking of, we're at time, we're at the hour, but I was thinking, do we continue going? But I think we got to all the questions. We had one more, just kind of a technical question. The man Ken had asked about, how much you risk per trade. I see you kind of your comments in the chat there, kind of doing the math. Um, if you're going with that, Coach Paul's suggestion of not losing more than 12% on your equity in a day, split that up. And Coach Paul, from your suggestion, you don't want to hit that 12% number frequently. That's kind of like, oh shit, everything went wrong, and excuse my language, Emery, but everything went wrong, and you know, this is where I am. But if you're risking maybe a half a percent of your equity or your drawdown, that's probably a good spot per trade. And it might sound like a little bit, but again, with these Topstep accounts, when you're starting out, it's always a good idea to trade micros to
Yes.
be able to manage that account.
Yes. Didn't some guy on the leaderboard put up a monstrously big number with the micros the other day?
Yeah, it did. That one was a little interesting because if that was live trading, he would have been like 1% of the overall volume or the
Oh,
micro Nasdaq.
gotcha.
But there was a trader that they just called up actually to the live account that I think had a 50K balance, only trading micros. So it's possible. It might not happen as quickly
Yeah.
as you want it to, but that is not always a bad thing.
Exactly.
Um,
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for
It's
joining.
always fun.
I'm
I
gonna.
love trading.
I didn't do my. I just dropped the link for the payout club in the chat. If you are eligible, if you're taking more than 5K in payouts from Topstep, make sure you fill that out. Get your hat and your pin. And I just saw some messages giving you guys a little bit of a sneak peek to what's going on behind the scenes. We talked about the payout club having tiers. Um, the the perks for the other tiers in the payout club are pretty nice, right? Pretty nice. So, something to look forward to. Other than if you hit those perks, you took taken a lot of money out of the markets. It's a great benefit. But then having a little gift from TopStep for doing it is available to you as well. I have nothing else. I'll be on Slow Markets with Dakota. I'm going to throw it to Anne Marie and then Coach Paul. Anne Marie, any words before we leave?
No, the last thing is I love what Dakota's been doing lately with the getting his entries near his stop loss,
Oh yeah,
and that really will help you manage that risk event. So that's been fun to watch.
awesome, awesome. Thank you, Anne Marie and Coach Paul. Any words before we go?
Just want to thank Anne Marie for being here,
It's been
and
my
great
pleasure.
words of wisdom, um, from a lot of experience. And I hope the audience got as much as I did out of that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Remember, markets are closed tomorrow. They are open tonight. But if you take any trades, they need to be closed. We talked about it early on. Make sure you read your top step emails. But 8:15 Central Time for trading combines and XFAs, and then 8 a.m. Central Time for any live account traders for the observance of President Jimmy Carter. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button on the way out, and we will see you all on Friday. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.